I went to Kazakhstan at that time. Soviet Union had collapsed in 1992. Shipping is kind of like a race. Sustainable shipping isn't just about, say, inventing a clean fuel. AI is able to pull all that data together from fuel production costs to vessel performance. If you're looking to start your own business, then don't wait for the perfect moment.
Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Insight Engine. Today, with us, Chris is here. Let me give you a brief introduction, then Chris will explain what he's doing and who he is. And he's a global leader in sustainable shipping and energy with over 30 years of experience in driving strategy, capital raising, and innovation.
Yeah, I've been in business now for about almost 40 years. I've spent much of my more recent career at the intersection of, say, sustainable shipping, financing, especially on the fuels, these future fuels, and quite a bit on the innovation, so on the technology side.
It's pretty interesting, but I'm not understanding all of it. So if you are explaining it to a normal guy who is not related to it, and also why as a normal person, not directly related to it, should be concerned, like what's happening in the world and how you are trying to
How to
change
say?
it.
First, I should say that it's all being driven by policy, right? And sustainable shipping is basically about cleaning up how ships move goods around the world. So right now, ships mostly burn HFO, heavy fuel oil. It's dirty and produces a lot of greenhouse gases. Shipping is responsible for something like 3% of global emissions, so it's under pressure to change by regulators. The industry is now testing, scaling these cleaner alternatives such as methanol within the same space, LNG, of course, ammonia and hydrogen, and even wind assisted systems, as well as battery electric. Each has their own pros and cons. Some are ready now, but more expensive. Others need new technology or, say, global supply chains that don't really exist yet. But at the same time, and in parallel, all the regulations are continue to tighten. The International Maritime Organization, IMO, has set targets to cut emissions in half by 2050 and targeting to be carbon neutral. So the EU already has several regulatory compliance initiatives in place for carbon pollution. So it's collectively, this is all pushing. So shipping is kind of like a race. You're building new fuels and technology, raising capital to invest in them, and getting global rules in place, the rules of the game, all while making sure ships can still deliver 90% of the world's trade affordably and reliably. But now we're trying to do it in a very highly compliant way.
Definitely, you are also running your business, right?
Yeah.
Helping these stakeholders connect the dots. So I want to understand how you are, what are the parties that you are supporting, how you are supporting, who is your clientele, and how you are serving them.
That's quite broad. Sustainable shipping isn't just about, say, inventing a clean fuel. It's about connecting many moving parts, but three in particular. First, the technology, new engines, clean fuels, and onboard systems that actually work at sea. So we need those first and foremost. Second, the capital, so investors and lenders that are willing to fund ships, plants, and infrastructure at scale. And third is the regulation, so rules, as we discussed. That provides a certainty in order for the rest of the market to make large, long-term bets. So my role within this space is often about helping bring these pieces together. So making sure that innovators can access capital, can see the commercial case, and then regulators can understand the technology so they can set realistic and pragmatic policies. So when all three connect, technology, capital, regulation, that's when sustainable shipping moves from pilot to full-scale global adoption. And we're sort of at the cusp of that right now, with beginning with LNG, but now with methanol. I think we'll see biofuels scaling now rapidly, and then ethanol as an extension of biofuels. And then we'll eventually see ammonia come into market. So the dots, as you suggested, are closing in and being connected. But it takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of effort.
Yeah, definitely. So I would love to know about how your journey started. So definitely it started a long ago, but how you got here, like step by step. If I just try to say, okay, how was the first 5 years, how you started, then the second 5 years from sixth, 10th of your career. Like if you just try to go back and leave those moments and share me some info.
I thought I really wanted to get into international business or something that had more of an international flavor. So to look into a volunteer role, eventually I wound up joining the Peace Corps, which is the US government initiative. So it's a 2-year commitment. Did it in a business incubator. I went to Kazakhstan at that time, just after the Soviet Union had collapsed in 1992, set up a business incubator. And then I went to Russia and I was working in oil and gas, which was more closely connected to my roots. Went to a trade school several years before, working in welding, oil and gas. And then from there, I moved into power generation with another large US entity in the same region of the world. I spent some time in Singapore, going back to 2007, and kind of pivoting into bioenergy. We listed that entity in the UK on the London alternative platform. Then went to Ukraine and did the same thing, large scale agriculture with a play on biofuel. Then spent still in Ukraine working in chemicals and gas, the energy space. And when things began to get too heated in Ukraine, I came back to Singapore, and that's where I've been since 10 years with the Methanol Institute based here in Singapore, developing methanol as a strategic for SAF, the methanol to jet pathway, as well as the marine fuel, and as a low carbon chemical feed. And then fast forward to about a year ago, I stepped outside of the Methanol Institute, and I've been working a number of different entities to again forward the alcohols, methanol and hip fuel as SAF and as green chemical feed.
It's a long journey, and then all this journey, then
Yes.
you have founded Carbon 3, right? So if you can now like share a bit on your entrepreneurial journey, like how you were working with these big organizations and then moved from there to start your own entrepreneurial journey, and why
Mm.
have you started it now? Initiated the idea of starting your own business?
I've always been quite passionate about sustainable everything, reuse, repurpose. Kind of goes back to how I was raised a bit. But after years of working with different organizations in shipping and energy, power generation, I decided to try a few things on my own because I began to identify some gaps. There are some amazing innovations happening in sustainable fuels and shipping, but the pieces weren't exactly connecting. Investors weren't sure where to put their money. So ship owners weren't really sure even which technology to back. And regulators were moving more or less at their own pace. So by collaborating with, say, my colleague Carbon 3, we can help to bring those worlds together. We can help to raise capital, structuring partnerships, and supporting projects that move from concept to reality. And even more importantly, it can give me some freedom to be agile, to work across fuels like methanol and ethanol, and to create solutions that are practical for the industry. Ultimately, it's about building something that accelerates decarbonization, but also stands on solid commercial ground. And getting that right is quite satisfying, I can say. Keep me relevant and keep me focused on the prize. So that's a lot about what Carbon 3, the in-setting platform, is focused on. So making green projects like sustainable fuels and decarbonization solutions easier to finance and scale. They bring together companies that need to cut emissions with investors who want to back credible, impactful projects. Shipping, that often means things like supporting green fuel trades, certifying emissions reductions, and creating financial tools that are going to help ship owners and cargo owners, players actually afford the transition. So in short, it's a bridge between sustainability goals.
As you are doing it and all those innovations are happening, so how you relate it with the recent evolution in AI and all these GPTs, LLMs are coming in, and how you see the
Oh,
industries shaping because of
that's
that?
a good see. It's really becoming a much more powerful enabler. Say focused on sustainable shipping, it's really starting to make a substantial impact. So if you think about it, we have ship owners, for example, that are looking to lock in fuel choices for 20 years plus. Funders or lenders who are weighing billion-dollar bets. Regulators trying to measure emissions across global supply chains. And really, only AI is able to pull all that data together from fuel production costs to vessel performance to carbon intensity, turn all these insights that humans can act on it quickly. In a capital raising perspective, certainly AI can streamline all the due diligence, the model risks, match green projects with the right investors. Do a lot of that in Carbon 3, working on insetting, optimize routing, fuel consumption, voyages, and even predict maintenance to cut emissions already now. In general, I see the industry moving much more to a data-driven model where investment decisions, regulatory compliance, and innovation put on real-time intelligence. And that's what's going to speed up the transition because AI can help to reduce the uncertainty, de-risking in the process. And in a capital-intensive industry, certainty is what unlocks action.
As these things are evolving, so how are you planning to implement more AI in your current business with Carbon 3, what you are doing? So why you look at it in the operations side or anything that you think can really utilize AI?
Well, I should note that, say, in Carbon 3, we were always, my partner in this, the other co-founder, is not a fan of blockchain. Certainly, we've seen a number of other models which were based on and weren't able to really perform well. They had very, very low uptake and very little support, actually. AI isn't really just a buzzword now, and we have quite a bit of experience using it in different formats. It's a tool we can implement step by step to make operations smarter and much more efficient. So carbon three, that means using it to streamline trade finance and carbon tracking. So, for example, automating the validation of sustainability certificates, matching buyers and sellers of green fuels on an inset basis where capital will be needed most. So we can do all that with AI, quite efficient at that. We're also working on another energy exchange, which will incorporate quite a bit of AI. It has to do with fuel physically and trading on paper, and then tracking and tracing all the emissions reductions benefits. So without AI, it's all to stimulate these market scenarios, like what happens if carbon prices double or if a new plant comes online. We need to be able to understand this in a more practical and immediate way so that investors and ship owners can make quicker, more confident decisions. So our plan is really about embedding AI where it creates value. So automating repetitive tasks, unlocking all the data insights, and then improving the decision making in the process. So this way, our people, whether they're coming from the lending side of the equation, operators or regulators, they can focus on the strategy and execution while AI does the heavy lifting in the background.
Another part of it is when the investors are taking decisions, I believe a lot of information that they need to process to take a decision. So in that case, is there any requirements of scraping data from online, collecting more
Yeah, for
data
sure.
about a certain topic?
Of course, we would do a lot of, and that helps to make our final product much more reliable because data is critical, right? Investors make decisions, but they need to know what's happening in the markets, regulations, and across the supply chain. Traditionally, that meant relying on reports, consultants, or maybe manual research, which were, quite to be honest, now most are turning to automated tools. They're all mainly AI driven, web scraping to collect real time data from online sources like commodity prices, shipping flows, regulatory updates, and even sentiment on corporate announcements. I don't mean to say that it's all about just scraping raw data because the real value is in cleaning, structuring, and interpreting it. So you have to have some insight on the market to be able to do that effectively. And that's again where AI steps in and turn huge volumes of messy online information content into something that investors can trust and get behind. We use a lot of different platforms depending upon what we're looking at, what we're reviewing internally, and we'll each come up with a little bit different results. But if we're close, plus minus 10%, then we feel we're onto something and we can further refine it. And so that's, in that respect, it's quite useful. And to remind, and there's so much different software that's out there and it's evolving literally like on a daily basis. So it's good to keep your options open. Yeah.
I think for like specific needs in a business, you should have your own LLM, private LLM. Maybe you buy a server PC and host it there. Why? Because then you can train it based on how you want it to be. But if you use like any chat GPT, Claude, anything like publicly, then it's always having its generalized knowledge that's like conflict. And then you cannot have a very specific structure all the time to perform the same way because it's chat window context, it's ending, and then yeah, that's when actually I think most of the companies will move to having, because these are also open source available, so you can that open source, and the cost is also getting to only your electricity bill.
Yeah, you can almost get like saying too deep as well and beyond your knowledge. So in some ways it's nice to have just, for example, chat GPT as a backstop to confirm your sources. And a lot of times we're working with public finance and institutions, so you need to have quite open sources to begin with. So and the only way to achieve that is working with an existing data that's maybe you can train it to a reasonable degree on your own.
Got it. No, it's not like that actually. Like it's already trained, but it will be trained towards something the way you want the result to be. For an example, you want it to be always working in a certain sequence to bring certain result, then it's more effective that way, and it's always learning why you said yes, why you said no, and what's happening. So that's why this, and also if it's a sophisticated data, you don't want to put the data up there in the public. Once you started your business, then definitely the business development part is also coming, right? I think it would be very easy for you because you are already in the industry for a long time. Once you start your own business, you become a
We
sales guy
continue
also
to
for your own business, right? Yeah. So how that come along, like from the shift from that
Uh,
career to as an
I
entrepreneur?
don't ever sacrifice good for perfect. If you're looking to start your own business, launch your own initiative, then don't wait for the perfect moment. So if you see a gap, you can identify in the market or a problem that's worth solving, and just start small, test your idea, and build from there. Focus on just being crystal clear on the problem you're solving and who really cares about it. Second, you need to really surround
Yeah.
yourself with good partners and mentors who can fill in the gaps you may lack. Just be prepared to fail fast, learn from it, and adapt, because the algorithm for entrepreneurship is never a straight line. It's always like that. That's why you have to be able to deal
And
with the ups and downs. And so, maybe most importantly, pick something that you're going to be genuinely passionate about. When you're starting out, the hours are long and the setbacks are frequent. And what keeps you going is your passion. It's what attracts investors and your partners to your
yeah,
vision.
thanks a lot, Chris, for all of your knowledge and everything that you've shared. So, any
Um,
last word for the audience from your life? It's like the way you say it, like I really loved it, is not exactly I'm framing it, but don't wait for the perfect good. Once you find something, don't, because once you start
mm,
perfecting something, maybe you don't even start. So once you have the good, definitely it can go forward. And also the market is changing so fast now. Maybe you are building or thinking something to make it perfect.
yeah.
Once it's perfect, it's irrelevant in the market. So go out there, kill it. Any
Well,
last
I
word
mean, I
for the
guess
audience?
if we stick with shipping, and if there was maybe one thing I could leave you with, it would be that the transition to sustainable shipping and really to a more sustainable economy in general won't happen because of one fuel or one company or one policy. There's no silver bullet. It will happen because people across industries decide to connect, like yourself, or maybe in some cases like myself. They take some bold steps, risk, and then they work together. They choose to work together. An innovator with your own technology, maybe, or simply someone who cares about the future, you have a role to play. So just stay curious, stay engaged, and just keep in mind that change on the ocean starts with action on the shore. So you have nothing to lose. So just go out there and crush it.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Chris, once again. And thank you everyone for listening.